Today, Chicago protesters face off outside of Mayor Lightfoot's home and a group of Chicago activists to file suit against federal agents appearing in the city of Chicago. A lot more coming right up. Welcome to Black Spring on your Friday. Hope everybody's doing well out there. And yes, this is a early live stream, much earlier than normal, but anytime's a good time, right? No less. So I just want to do a shout out, of course, to the loyal patrons and you, the subscribers. And we will start with Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, Angel's Army, The Definition of Anarchy, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, Gary O. Youngkeast, and Cold War Jesus. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. And thanks so much to the loyal subscribers on your Friday. So, no less, we are not short on topics and concerns around the country. So we're actually going to start with a bit of the action that's happening in Chicago. This stream will be a brief stream, but no less, there's plenty to cover. So we'll try to get into as much as possible. If there's some reason I don't finish, then I will continue later today or even on a moonlight stream. So I look forward to that. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So without further ado, we do have a bit of activism. We have BLM activism filing a lawsuit against the intervention of the federal agencies, if you will, from, yes, of course, with the Trump administration. That includes AG Barr, and of course, it covers the entire administration, just to say the least. But I will take you specifically to that story. But first, we'll begin with a clip that comes from a protest being held outside of, just a brief clip on the protest being held outside of the mayor's home in Chicago. And once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So if you're out there, if you could do the Channelytics a favor and the platform a favor and just hit that like button or hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down. I always say hit the like button or the unlike button, but it's all the same. Or hit, if you dare to share, throw caution to the wind that way. That's great. But also just make sure you're still subscribed so that you will continue to get notifications. So hope you guys are on your way to a great Friday. And if you're on your way to a great weekend, that's even better. So with that said, I'll go ahead and take you to the first clip that's going to be out of Chicago. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. Sorry about that. Just a little bit of a reminder on time there. Hope you guys are doing well. So I'm sorry, I'll go ahead and get started here. Uh-oh.
So you need a logo. The obvious choice is going to Fiverr and finding a logo design. order the Columbus statue in Grant Park to be taken down as soon as tonight.
Hang on just one second. I apologize for the delay there. A little bit of a technical delay there, but no less, I will get it. I will change it over right now. Thank you so much again for your patience.
A lot going down in Chicago tonight, racing for the influx of federal officers headed there with the goal of quelling the street violence plaguing the city right now. A massive protest, protesters facing off with police outside the Democratic mayor's home. Lori Lightfoot also reportedly planning to order the Columbus statue in Grant Park to be taken down as soon as tonight, after it was the scene of an ambush on police officers by rioters who were trying to tear down the iconic memorial.
All right. Once again, thank you so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Now, for starters, just want to give you just a little bit of, I'll give you a little bit of landscape for, and that's not assuming that you don't know, but if you're not aware, that Chicago has its own culture or its own legacy of protest and movements. You can go back into the 60s. You had, of course, you have your Weatherman Underground. You had the Black Panthers. You had many movements to come out of Chicago. So when you think of protesters, when you think of seasoned, I want to say protesters, you want to think of seasoned terrorism. You can find many examples of that historically out of Chicago. And you have many, in fact, it's not ironic that they would have some of those same kinds of grassroots influences have influenced the BLM movement as well. I mean, yes. So you've had many well-known elite, or some people might even say hippie style grassroots movements or organizations that were born out of Chicago during the 60s. Shout out to you, Patrick J. Forum's Killer Whale Channel. Shout out to you. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. Hi, shout out to you, Touchdown Sean. Thank you so much for coming in. Touchdown Sean says, Mayor Lightfoot is pure evil. This woman is more concerned with fighting on Twitter than the citizens. Of course, yes. But I'm going to take you right now specifically to the story in which there are the activists. So here I am talking, I'm giving you a little bit of background on the culture of protest. And, the minute you add the violence to the violence is the terrorism or the insurgency or the mutiny. You've got, it's a well-established culture there. And in fact, those groups, I mentioned the Weatherman Underground, you have the likes of Bill Ayers, Bernadine Dorn. When you think about the culture of some of these groups, they're not fighting clean. They're not fighting fair. They're fighting, it's more like I want to call it guerrilla warfare. You're talking about organizations that literally recruited the less suburbanite type profiles. They recruited those types of people to assist them in violence back in the 60s and 70s in those operations. And of course, that was post MLK. You had more of the peaceful protest history, but then after Dr. King's assassination, you had more of a wave. The tactics changed, and you've got these communist tactics, and these groups that employ those tactics on the street, and they very much were pro-violence at that point. So you've got, certainly Chicago is almost like dealing with, that's it's an army in itself. It's almost, if you can say, professional. That level they've been organizing for decades. So shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Thank you guys so much for doing your due diligence. It's always provocative topics on Black Spring, so no less. But I appreciate it. Patrick Jane Forum says the mayor in St. Louis is terrible as well. I certainly, I would imagine so. You know, we've got a they're all trying to strike a blow right now. So in fact, right now I have an update. They have removed the statue in Chicago. So I'm going to go ahead and take you to that clip. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring. Hope you guys are doing well. And then we'll also give you some background story on some of the activism that's you're whether it's desecration of flags, whether it's desecration of monuments, they'll put anything on the front of their revolution because it's all about overthrowing. It's all about overthrowing. It's not about resolution. Of the again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Hope you guys are doing well.
Removal
Any abuse of authority by agents will be met with legal consequences.
That if you see something that doesn't look right, please don't hesitate to report it. We are going to remain diligent, and if we see any steps out of line, we are not going to hesitate to take the president to court.
Mike Tobin is live in Chicago with
around the bottom. Last night, the rumors started swirling that the mayor had planned to move under cover of the night, bring in the cranes and remove the Columbus statue. And sure enough, about 1 o'clock in the morning, the crane showed up and the big statue was removed. The mayor's office issuing a statement today saying that the statue was removed because it had become such a flashpoint. It was being removed for safety reasons. The catch is she did not talk it up with Chicago aldermen. A lot of them are pretty angry, the ones I'm hearing from this morning, saying that essentially she caved to the demands of the rioters. She rewarded the rioters. And someone just drove by a short time ago and shouted out the word power. Now, there was a Back the Blue rally that was planned here for tomorrow. There was some concern that that itself could become a flashpoint. And one thing I've heard from organizers is that the Back the Blue rally is still on. Melissa?
Didn't protesters march to the mayor's house over this issue as well?
That was going on last night. There was a big march to the mayor's house, a very loud march. It created a lot of pressure. The announcement was made to those marchers that indeed the statue was going to be removed. There was a big cheer that went out. It turned the whole thing in Logan Square, was the area where they marched. It turned the whole thing in Logan Square into a big street party. However, very quickly, the chanting in that crowd turned to defund the police. So if a move was intended to satisfy these demonstrators and the rioters, it didn't satisfy all of them. Melissa?
Mike Tobin, thank you for that.
Once again, looks like I'm buffering a little bit. We'll figure it out. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to come in on such an early bird flash like button or the unlike button. You know, it's chanalytics. You know, it is what it is, and it's not what it's not. So, you know, just Patrick James for actually sharing out this stream. I really appreciate that, Derek C. Williams, wherever you are on your Friday morning. I really appreciate all that you do and all of your support. About some of these first things that are going on. And keep an eye on your community tab this weekend. I may have some information for you. I may have some announcements for you, and some things are coming up on the channel. Because I am buffering. Take you to a story that gives you more background on the actual activism that's happening in Chicago around once again. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I don't want to giving you some of the context. I don't think there's an actual visual or clip audio on this one. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Okay. Hope everybody's doing well. Let's see, a little bit delayed there. Tab. Also be sure to check out your Patreon tabs as well. I do apologize for the delay. You know, I don't normally do these streams so early, but okay, let's see. All right, so here we are. We have this is coming from ABC News. And I just want to share this one with you. The Chicago groups sue to bar federal agents from protest duties. Now, again, I'm reiterating, the collection of Chicago activist groups want a judge to block federal agents sent to the city to combat violent crime from interfering in or policing protest. All right, this is by Kathleen Foody, Associated Press. I'll give you a little bit of this. Okay, so what you have here, you have pictured was Aislinn Pulley. a founding member of Black Lives Matter in Chicago, speaks at a rally on the Federal Plaza on yesterday, Thursday, July 23rd, 2020, after a collection of Chicago activist groups announced they are filing a federal lawsuit against the Chicago Police Department, Fraternal Order of Police, and the federal government in Chicago. The lawsuit also asked a judge to prevent agents in Chicago from making arrests or detaining people without probable cause, and to require agents to identify themselves and their agency before taking either action and explain why someone is being arrested. So I'm not sure, you don't, that's not standard. That's not even standard police protocol. I wouldn't say, for one, the CBP commissioner has already shown what those officers are dressed in. This is like one of those videos that you see on social media, the people that are, if you're being detained or if you're being questioned on the law, these are the kinds of challenges that a cop that I've seen them face when they are doing a traffic stop or whatever the traffic stop is, whether it's no license plate, whether you're speeding. I've never been able to call the shots. I've been pulled over myself, but I've never been able to call the shots or tell a cop how he's supposed to find out how he's supposed to conduct himself during a police traffic stop. That's not standard. But in a situation like this, they've already got according to the CBP commissioner, they already have the probable cause. And for one, see, this is kind of going back to, this is kind of on a cultural issue. This goes back to the kind of communist and kind of domestic terrorist mantras in which they want to call the shots. They would like to have police officers wearing the number 05 on the back, like a football player. That's what they would prefer. And they'd like to have the names of these police officers on display. In some cases, these police officers have already been doxxed. They've already been doxxed, but some of these elite out of Chicago have been on record saying that they want to know, these are elites, they want to know who the police officers are, and they should have their numbers and their badges numbers all taped on their backs as if they're, gladiators in a sporting arena. I mean, but then notice that where it comes from. It's not always when you get a liberal, an elite liberal, a suburbanite liberal trying to call the shots or make the rules. And these are issues that don't even affect their communities. So why would they? It's a pet project. It's a pet project. It's a novelty. It's, pick a project. Pick a project. I mean, this is the same mantra. These same people live in this utopia fairy tale land. They want to abolish prisons. They want to create a utopia that they don't actually live in, that they're not a part of. But because they're so humane and they're so concerned about the Black community, that they think that they should be calling shots. They should be telling you how you should live your lives, what safety means to you, what it looks like to you. So, it's staggering. It's what I call liberal supremacy, white liberal supremacy, if you will. That's what you're getting. And that's what you've always gotten. I mean, you can just tell. These groups, they have a history of recruiting the less than suburbanite, the rich suburbanite. They recruit people that have little or nothing to lose, and they use them for their revolution, and then you get tossed away. It's no different than what they refer to as a useful idiot. It's no different than that. So I'll bring you back. I apologize, but I'll get back to this. Thank you guys so much for coming in at this hour. All right. So I'll take you back to this story. This is from ABC. So according to this, out of Chicago, a collection of Chicago activists want a judge to block federal agents sent to the city to combat violent crime from interfering in or policing protest, arguing in a lawsuit filed Thursday that the surge ordered by President Donald Trump will inhibit residents' ability to hold demonstrations. Okay, it says the suit names Attorney General William Barr, along with the heads of other federal agencies whose agents are part of the surge plan announced at the White House on Wednesday. The announcement did little to calm some Chicago residents' fear that the agents' presence will lead to the violent clashes between demonstrators and federal agents seen in Portland. Aislinn Pulley, the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Chicago, said the federal strategy uses crime as an excuse to, quote, stifle righteous rage and anger at the continued killing of Black people by police, end quote. Quote, we will not be threatened, end quote, police said at a news conference announcing the suit, quote, we will not be coerced into suppressing our rage, end quote. The lawsuit also asked a judge to prevent agents in Chicago from making arrests or detaining people without probable cause, along with requiring agents to identify themselves and their agency and explain why someone is being arrested. So, I mean, just for kicks and giggles, I mean, does anybody actually think that these federal agents in a situation in which they are potentially being assaulted by Molotov cocktails or ice water bottles, that they're going to stand there and give some type of synopsis or read an abstract about who they are when they're clearly wearing or marked, or explain why somebody's being arrested. That's never even on a regular traffic stop. That's not the way police officers do their job. That's just not. I'm not a police officer, but I've never had a police officer. He will give you an explanation. But if violence is happening, does anybody actually think that's going to happen in the middle of a violent situation? They're not going to stand there and stand behind bring a lectern, assemble a lectern and give you an abstract on what's going on. I mean, this is the kind of lunacy. It's bizarre. It's not bizarre. It's just these people know exactly what they're doing, and they can put up whatever front they want. It's already been done. Shout out to you. If violence is happening, what cop is going to do that? He will be toast. He'll be lawn mulch while he's explaining to you. He's already, at that point, he's probably already being assaulted. Now, this is a presumption, but they're not being deployed because they have gregarious or nonviolent behavior. Whatever protesters they've been hijacked. Their cause, their means, it's all hijacked by now. So I'll finish that one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment. So I'm just thinking, this is the narrative. It's a bait and switch. Oh, well, we're not about violence. We're not doing anything wrong. But hey, while I'm throwing a ice water bottle at you, stand up here and tell me who you are, and tell me why you're arresting me. Why are you arresting anybody when you just got knocked out or you got hit from behind with a frozen water bottle? I mean, can you imagine? Okay, so, but there again, this is the culture of these. I think I would say Chicago is one of the birthplaces of violence and terrorism and domestic terrorism. They've got homegrown terrorism that came out of Chicago. They've got huge networks by now. Tentacles everywhere. They had them back then. They had Washington state movements. You know, you're not going to, no cop is going to go through a gut check while they're being assaulted with a frozen water bottle or rocks being hurled at them, or, you know, God forbid, you know, if they start, if gunfire is released. Shout out to everybody in the stream. All right, so the planned surge already has caused some members of the activist groups to draw back from protest plans this weekend, quote, due to the well-founded fear that they will be brutalized or kidnapped by federal agents, end quote, attorneys wrote. There goes your tyranny narrative. Okay, in Oregon, the state has asked a judge for a similar restraining order against agents deployed to quell protesters in Portland. The suit filed by the Oregon Attorney General Ellen Rosebloom accuses federal agents of arresting protesters without probable cause, whisking them away in unmarked cars, and using excessive force. Federal authorities have disputed those allegations. Barr and Acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf on Wednesday also sought to separate the mission in Portland to protect federal property from the goal of helping stop violent crime. Barr said the additional agents will focus on, quote, classic crime fighting, end quote, expanding an existing operation that sent federal agents to Kansas City, Missouri after a 4-year-old boy's shooting death. Trump and Barr spoke only of plans in Chicago and Albuquerque during the announcement, but the White House said in a later press release that the program would be expanding in coming weeks into Cleveland, Detroit, and Milwaukee. So there you have, you're getting a bit of the Operation Legend spell out on here. Officials in those cities said that they oppose any plan that could bring the chaotic scenes from Portland to their own streets. Democratic leaders remain skeptical of the Trump administration's motivation and uncertain about the agent's responsibility. All right, so now you have something from out of Wisconsin. Wisconsin Democrat Governor Tony Evers sent Trump a letter Wednesday saying that he was, quote, deeply disturbed to hear about federal agents possibly being deployed to Milwaukee through a television interview with Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows rather than direct communication with his office. Quote, this is not a moment to double down and unnecessarily increase police presence, especially without an invitation, end quote, Evers wrote. So here's the ticker. If they're so opposed to, if they are so concerned about their citizens, why haven't they used their statist authorities and governing power to control these situations? If they're so concerned about the safety, if they're so concerned about the First Amendment, it's a peaceable right to assemble. It's not an ambush. It's not a guerrilla warfare right to assemble. Why aren't they doing their own job? And why are people dying if they're so peaceful? If it's really, and why are they destroying federal property? I mean, do we need to redefine the word peaceable? Or is it just they just get to make up things as they go along? So shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment. Unfortunately, it's just the beginning. There's been a lot of children's lives that have been lost in the last several weeks. It's been a lot of loss of life, and it's going to continue because, of course, unfortunately, it's also politically expedient, and it's also going to wreak havoc on people with Second Amendment rights because of all the gun violence. And in fact, you've heard Lightfoot speak on many press conferences about her problems. Oh, it's the gun violence. It's the gun violence. We need more strict gun laws. I mean, that's the danger in these situations. They're being used. They're going to be they're going to be the stepping stone. The loss of life is going to end up being what they use to disarm citizens, law-abiding citizens, by creating tougher gun laws. You already have the extreme law on the books, the extreme measures on the House books right now. So you'll have that. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment. So I'll just give you just a little bit more of this, and I'm going to wrap this stream in about 15 minutes. So of course you've got all of these, you've got governors and mayors, all, you know, you've got them all coming out. But I think this was, in fact, the Trump administration mentioned at the beginning of his presidency that I'm surprised that it's actually taken this long, actually, because the death rates and the effects on the Black community was already high. It was already high back in 2016, 2015. And Trump was basically, even his own correspondent said that, you know, he was going to send, it was Paris Denard who said back in 2016, 2017, that what was happening in Chicago was not going to, I'm paraphrasing, going to happen on his watch. So I'm really surprised that it's taken this long, because those conditions have not gotten any better for the people, hasn't gotten any better for those kids. I mean, they can't even have, you can't even lay anyone to rest in that city. But don't talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it, right? Somehow we're, you know, somehow in this utopian lunacy, you're supposed to make what they're doing respectable. The protesting is, the so-called protesting is more respectable than saving people's lives, which is, it's beyond, it's bizarro land across many of these cities. And their narrative will be tyranny. And most people will believe it. Even if kids are suffering. In fact, you know, I did a little bit of a coverage on a story in which even the black business owners out of Chicago were putting up money to bring many of these kids, bring the murderers to justice. And I would imagine many people of Chicago have contacted the White House. I'm sure they have. This is where they live. This is where they live. So, I mean, the other thing is nobody wants to see the federal government take over anything. I don't think anybody would be an advocate for that, because they've been these governors, these mayors, they've had this has been an opportunity, an unprecedented opportunity during this pandemic, for them to use their status power, use their civic powers to control their own situations, control your own violence, control your cities, control your municipalities, control your jurisdictions. Why aren't you doing that? Shout out to everybody in the stream. Shout out to Touchdown Sean. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to wrap in this stream in like 5 minutes. I want to thank everybody who was able to join on such an early hour. And I will return. This is a flash stream, so there's certainly a flash, but no less. There's going to be developments, I would imagine. Not really sure how far they're going to get with, you know, lawsuits take time, probable cause. I mean, I guess they'll have some fun with that and creating a narrative, which is what they do. But the problem is that they have a way of, they've controlled the narrative, and that's why we have so many sleeper cells culture going on right now, because you know, it's you can't discern, because they are controlling the narrative. These liberals, these progressives, these utopians, these vanity ideologies types, these vanity ideologues, these utopian ideologues, they all have the drop on making the world a better place. But we'll see what that looks like, and it doesn't look too good. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate you guys for coming in and doing your diligence on this Friday. And I will give you a heads up where this particular stream will be continued. I had a few other stories to share with you, but then I'm sure there'll be another announcement today by the end of the day. Thank you guys so much. You guys have a great rest